Okay, so we'll get started. Thank you for coming. Little quick Million Cups thing. So my name's Don Winkle, for those couple or one that I haven't met. Anyway, so this is 1 Million Cups. We started this a few weeks back. This is our really second event where we have somebody speaking, so thank you for coming. And the idea here is for local sort of startups and entrepreneurs and businesses to share their story, what they're doing very quickly, 5-6 minute kind of, here's what I'm up to, here's why. And then from people who are in attendance, kind of have some questions and learn more about it and what can we do to help and all that kind of thing. And so our desire, Joe here and Carrie here and some other folks that aren't here today have helped to organize this and be a part of this. And our desire is to get a lot more people in town here to share what they're doing, but also then to engage with entrepreneurs and startups. And our other goal here, I think, because Carrie and Deb Halperin is another woman involved, are at Wesleyan and I'm at ISU, is to also get some students involved who are messing around with starting some things up and running some things. So we'll hopefully have a mix of here's students doing it and here's, I guess, adults doing it. That probably didn't come out right, but yeah, more boring people and more, right. So anyway, thank you for coming, and if we'd love for you guys to check it out. It's 1millioncups.com/McLean County is the website. If you have something you want to present your business, we'd love to have you and let you talk about it. If you have any questions, myself or Joe or Carrie here in the front may or may not be able to answer questions. We're all new at this too, so there's that. So I'm the presenter today, so that makes it easy. And so the business that I'm presenting about is called Legacy Out Loud, and I teach entrepreneurship over at ISU. Have done that. This is my 6th year doing that, and really quickly when I got into teaching entrepreneurship there, I realized there were very few women in my classes. And the ones that were in my classes were significantly better students in terms of being more engaged, just sort of asking better questions, being sort of more observant of things and coming to see me after class, and all these things that register to me as an educator to say this person's really engaged and wants to go places. And so I started thinking about why aren't there more women in this class. It was a very selfish thing initially of I just want them because if they're better students it makes a better experience for me. But I also knew that it sort of mirrored and mimicked real life where there's fewer women starting and running and growing businesses in general than men. And so I started calling colleagues of mine at other schools, asking them how do you get more women involved, and they said we don't. Not through lack of trying, but just they hadn't been able to do that. And I figured out that all these colleagues I were calling were basically men. And if you look at entrepreneurship programs across the country at schools, they're generally built by and run by men. And so I figured that might have something to do with it. And so I decided I can't be somebody that starts to solve this problem because I don't know what it's like to be a 18, 19, 20-year-old young woman. So I started reaching out to women, entrepreneurs, investors, innovators and such, to get their opinions of if I wanted to try and get more women involved in this area, how do I do that? And over the course of a year, I ended up talking to about 500 or 600 women from all over the country to get their perspective. And what I've come up with, I have now a co-founder, Elizabeth Cardiello's a woman out in New York City, who's a co-founder with me in this. And basically what we've come up with is that for any college student really, but initially we're focusing on young women, the way that most of them go through college is a little backwards in terms of career readiness, right? Where they oftentimes will start off and say, here's the skills I want to learn, then here's the career I want to apply that to, and then here's sort of the legacy or the stamp that I want to leave on the world. And we think that's a little backwards, so we're flipping that process to say, let's figure out, what legacy do you want to leave in the world? Why are you doing whatever it is you want to be doing? And then let's get you into a career path that helps you achieve that goal, and then let's get you the skills and the networking and the mentoring and stuff to be able to get to that career path. And so we just kind of are reversing that process a little bit. We focus on women at the outset because I think there's a gap there that needs to be filled. I think to be blunt, it's also a very sexy and timely topic, and so it's easier for us to gain a little bit of traction with that from a marketing perspective. But we get a lot of good feedback from stakeholders and people we engage. And so part of what we've done is built up where we have currently in a pilot test group, we have 14 students from 8 different colleges across the country that are doing this, all young women. And we're putting them through sort of a curriculum, I call it loosely, just because I'm an educator, so it's hard for me to call it that really. But we have a curriculum where we're engaging them and trying to teach them, sales and negotiating and financial literacy and sort of positive thinking and all the things that they need to gain confidence and feel more confident in trying to set and achieve their goals in life or personally or any of that kind of stuff, which then we think translates into you're more engaged, in your classrooms and your college experience, you're better prepared for life and career and all these kind of things. So we have a curriculum that we're kind of putting people through, putting these young women through, and as we get to know them and get to understand more about what they really want to do in life and the career path they want to choose, then we have this pool of 500-600 women, and also a lot of men are there as well, and we basically take that and form almost a mastermind group for each young woman to say, if you want to be in the retail shoe industry, let's say, well, here's a bunch of people who are in that industry, invest in that industry, have experience, whatever, and they will come together as a group of 5 or 6 experts, and they will work with this young woman to say, here are the kinds of experiences you need to have. You need to go to this, shoe show or whatever happens, right? You need to talk to these people, and they basically use their resources and their knowledge to get these young women the skill sets and the connections that they need to be successful that oftentimes the schools can't do for them. So we're basically filling that gap. And so it's a yearly thing, it's a year-long thing. We function on an academic year just because we're working so much with schools. And so these young women go through an academic year where they go through this curriculum, they're set up and sort of being mentored by groups to really enhance their sort of career readiness and their career desires and goals and whatnot to get them much further down that road so that when they do graduate, they're actually ready and have a much better foundation for getting out into the real world and much less likelihood that they're going to bounce around between 10 or 12 jobs that they don't really want to be doing. And so going forward, part of what we're doing is trying to figure out how to scale that. It's really good. We've had a phenomenal success with some of these young women already. We had a big event we threw in New York City to sort of kick this off, and we've had a lot of sort of progress with these young women in terms of where we've seen them go from I'm not really sure what I want to be doing to I know exactly what I want to be doing, and here are the things that I already have in place to be able to get there successfully. And so we're trying to figure out how to scale it using some technology, but also to keep it personal, right, between the mentoring and all that kind of stuff. The goal we have is to grow it so that it becomes an application thing for students so that we can house and take a lot more students in and use a lot more students in the process to create a bigger impact, partner with schools, partner with organizations that are interested in mentoring young people, and then also expand it so there's men involved as well, right, and male students as well. We want it to be anything for anybody that wants it, but for right now we had to sort of narrow down and focus on an easier sort of beachhead to go after, and the women was the one at the moment. So that's kind of where we sit now. We're halfway through, the first pilot test of this with these young women, we think it's been very successful. We've had some ups and downs like anybody, some successes and failures, but we have a lot of interest from a lot of other schools who've caught wind of this and heard about it, so that's a good thing. Now it's that scale problem, right? We have this interest, but what do we do with it, and how do we scale this up? And so that's kind of where we are, right? That's the kind of quick and dirty of what we do and why we're doing it. Again, the big idea really is to supplement what is going on with them at the college experience, in their college experience, because being in it myself and having gone through it myself, I think there's a big gap that doesn't get filled by the university or the college, and so our goal is to sort of fill that for them. So that's what I do. That's what we do, right? So nice and quick and dirty again. Thanks, Brandon. So any questions or any thoughts? Or yes, ma'am.
How many other universities have entrepreneurship programs?
Well, there's a ton. I mean, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but hundreds. I mean,
Okay.
and it's becoming a much more prevalent thing, on college campuses, and if you think about it, typically the people who have a lot of money to give are entrepreneurs. And when they give money back to schools, they typically want to support the things that help them be successful. And so that creates this, I want to set up entrepreneurship programs if they're not already there. And if they are there, more capital flows into them so they grow. So it's becoming and plus it's a sexy word, and it's one of these things now where if you don't have that as a school, people kind of go, So, and that's part of our issue is at least in that little nook, there's tons and tons of opportunity, and that's just in the U.S., right? And there's schools all over the world. So how do we scale it to accommodate that? Yeah.
So you are specifically targeting business or entrepreneurship?
No, that's where we started there only because that's where I am, so it's sort of easy pickings in some way. But no, and we have a lot of these, so these 14 young women, I'd say maybe 2 of them are really sort of, I want to start my own business, I want to be that version of an entrepreneur. The rest of them are saying, I want to work in, Wall Street investment banking or retail, whatever, right? So they're not wanting to go the startup route anyway. All right, and our goal again is to have very different, career paths and different. Get the artists and the scientists, get them all in there because they can all add a lot of value to each other.
And then how much of their experience is about them together as a cohort, like of them learning from each other or communicating
Yep.
that way?
Absolutely, that's part of what we figured out that we missed early on. And so we had them start in August or so, and so we were doing things sort of asynchronously. They were all in their own places in August, and then we just had this event in New York City in November, and they came together, 10 of them were able to get there, and so since that, which is maybe 3 weeks ago, it's been ridiculous, the progress that has been made. And so going forward, then what we're going to do is have, okay, here's a kickoff event where you all come together.
Right.
And then we go, right? So now we know that's a key element as well to do that.
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Kickoff. What was it about? Just it's a party, or?
Yeah. So we had there's a day in New York City. The mayor and everybody sort of designated this day, November 19th, as Women's Entrepreneurship Day. And so they have this big event at the United Nations where they bring in lots of people and speakers and panels and all this kind of stuff. And so I know the woman who put that together. And our organization basically hosted the after party for that event. And so our students went to the UN event, for the full day. And then, we're sort of the stars of the after party. And the after party was kind of like our launch party where we announced this to this, there was, 300 people or so in the room, from this big UN event. And so it was an event that wasn't really associated with us per se, but it's kind of same issues, same sort of topics and all that, and we kind of piggybacked on it. In the future, we'll have our own sort of standalone, this event is about these young women and about students and all that kind of a thing.
So it's kind of a marketing / introduction of students to the world.
Exactly, and it was here's an easy platform. My co-founder lives in Manhattan, so there's an easy platform to plug into to get them together, get a little bit of exposure and PR and all that kind of stuff. But huge success, that's what's led us to then say, hey, next year, in August or whatever, before school starts, we're going to have a big event and get them together and make it about our stuff specifically, not just some tangential kind of thing. Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit upon your curriculum, what's involved in that, in particular, some of the areas of introduction, like some of the sectors, what industries do you introduce? Is it,
Yep.
sort of, because I come from the fintech world, which is basically, I hate to say it, one big frat party.
Yep.
There's really not a lot of female involvement, sadly.
Sure.
I know a joke, but is there sort of opening eyes to maybe other industries that sort of historically have not been introduced?
Yeah, we haven't gone down the path of bringing the industries into the conversation. It's more of sort of skills in the way that they look at things, right? So, bringing in the kinds of things that would help them to build a confidence in themselves and their abilities, and more competency-based stuff than industry-specific stuff. So it's the sales, the negotiating, here's the power of positive thinking, and without getting too touchy-feely, right? This is how you can go about that and the difference and all that kind of stuff. So it's more along a competency line in terms of the curriculum than a industry line, right? And then what we do is when we start to Liz, my co-founder, and I spend a lot of time with the young women, learning about them, hearing what they're thinking and talking. And in this curriculum, there's lots of feedback and documentation they provide us, and we review. So as we hear things and start to see things from them, that's where we then say, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or what do you think about this? And that's where the industry stuff starts to come in a little bit more on a one-to-one basis, right? So to that point, though, with the scalability, that's part of then we have to figure out how to, because Liz and I can't do that for many more people individually, so we have to figure out how to do that on a scalability basis.
So this is additional curriculum for the students, right? So they go to school
Yeah.
here,
Yep.
and they do this in the evening, afternoons, whatever,
Yep.
whatever it
Yep.
is. And what is the cost to the
Zero. They'll never have any cost, right? So
So then how do you select individuals? I mean,
mhm.
can anybody apply, or is there
Yep, this first batch, I basically called up colleagues of mine and just said, here's what I'm trying to do. I need 2 superstars, from your school to kind of run through this process and help us learn this. Subsequently now what we're doing is we'll have an application process where any college student can apply. I think we're probably going to keep it to the US this year just to bound it a little bit so it's easier for us. But it'll be an application process, and then we'll sort of review it, and we'll have some external people review to pick out, these are people with sort of high potential. And ideally we'd love to have, what we want to get eventually is students, graduating high school seniors who are on their way into college, so that we can get them before they get to college, so that this becomes a supplemental thing the whole way through. But at this point it's more of, we'll take people we can get, right? So the 14 that are in now are juniors and seniors, right? But ideally we'd love to have much younger folks, because I think that creates a bigger impact. So, yeah.
when you talk about scaling from here, from
Mhm.
Illinois State, and going to Chicago, Pennsylvania, wherever, kind of expand upon that, and I know you're learning, it's
Yeah.
it's kind of beta. But talk about also how you attract that group of mentors, and how do you keep them engaged? What's your selection for them?
Yeah. And part of the reason this evolved into what it evolved into was because through those conversations I had with all these folks, again, most of these are very successful entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, whatever. And so they had talked a lot about how they do a lot of this mentoring. They get asked to do a lot of mentoring with young folks. Most of the mentoring they do happens with young professionals. And the way that they get asked to mentor is, hey, I want you to plug into this process. Don't give me your opinion, just do what I tell you to do, and then we're good, check that box. And so a lot of these people expressed a lot of frustration with that process. One, because they were sort of tired of the young professional and they wanted to go further downstream to younger folks. 2, because they didn't feel like they had any ownership in that mentorship process. So I kept hearing this theme, and I thought, aha, if I want to engage these people, that's what I need to give them, because that's what they want. And so I offered them that and said, okay, so if you help me set this up, then that's what I want to do, right? I want you to sort of drive this bus and do, what you need to do, because you live it. So I'm giving you that permission. I'm just bringing the people to you, the students to you. So that's part of how we keep that engagement up, is because we let them sort of co-create, the process, and so they're really bought in. And then, in terms of the what was the first question? Scalability. Yeah, in terms, huh?
In different locations.
Yeah, in terms of that, it's at least the way Liz and I look at it, it's really technology, right? It's just having the technology to allow, after sort of initial meetings and all this stuff, to allow this to happen. And I don't think we have to build anything. I think it's just using what's already there and figuring out the right combination, to do. So I think it's very scalable. I think, with my connections and sort of the world of education, there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of schools who are already very interested in this, and at ISU, if somebody gets interested, well, there's 20,000 kids right there. And at Wesleyan, there's a couple thousand, right? More, and so there's big and small schools, but as soon as people hear of this at the universities, it seems like it becomes something of very, very big interest. So I see the problem being, we have too much interest, and how do we handle that? And that's a good problem to have. I'd rather have that problem, right? But we don't know a really good solution to that at this point. We'll figure it out, right? Liz and I are kind of more idea people, not very good with details and organization. So we're working on that. We're getting better at that. It's part of my learning process. All right. Well, thank you. And yeah, like I said, with these meetings, that's kind of the format we're looking for. So, if you have people who who would be interested in sharing what they're up to, we'd love to have them here. Any of you in particular, if you have something, we'd love to have you here. Go to the website and apply, or talk to me or Joe or Carrie, and we can get you there to apply and get you up here. And you know, hopefully as this thing builds, there's bigger audiences, and then it can really be a way to let people in the community know what you're up to, but then beyond the community, if you know, partnering with the 1 Million Cups in Peoria, and you know, you can bounce around to other communities too and share your stuff there. So, thank you.
Cool.